came and went. I spoke to a number of people within Australia Zoo as they left today, and they spoke of staff walking around crying. Some people turned up through the day and planted flowers or put flowers at the signs where Steve's head adorns there above Australia Zoo, and really emotional scenes as people came to grips. And as they left today, this is what some of them had to say.
I don't actually believe it.
Oh, I think it's a tragedy. Like we were sort of talking before, I think he's a great Australian. Like, you know, he's done a lot of good for the environment.
Actually shocking. Yeah, shocking, yeah.
Devastating, mate. I mean, it can't be good for Australia Zoo having its number one icon, you know, killed.
Now, Jamie, we know he absolutely idolised his wife Terry and his children. I believe Terry learned the news in Tasmania.
Yeah, we understand that Terry is still returning to the Sunshine Coast. Obviously, Steve was a man who was a family man above all things. He may have been a larrikin, an entrepreneur, a conservationist, and an entertainer, but he loved his family. His wife Terry was his sidekick through many a documentary and even through a movie, and it's still yet to be determined exactly how that will affect the operation of Australia Zoo. But again, in time we'll find that out, and we'll hopefully be able to find out more about that in the coming days.
Okay, thank you. Jamie Rule reporting from the Sunshine Coast.
John Staten was Steve's close friend and manager. He spoke at a media conference a short time ago.
I don't know, it's just the worst day of my life today. Mainly because you think about all the documentaries we've made and all the dangerous situations that we have been in. You always think, you know, is this it? Is this a day that may be his demise? I don't know. We've been in some pretty close shows. This morning, Steve was up early. He and I shared a cup of tea on the back deck of Croc 1. Spoke about the day, about the doco we were making and how good it would have been. He did a great sequence on a sea snake yesterday, which was just superb. It was so good, and we were very proud of it, and he was really happy with it. We were talking about the things that we're going to shoot in the next couple of days, and then he said, look, one problem Steve had was he couldn't sit still for 5 seconds. And because the weather was bad today, or for the last couple of days, he'd been like a caged lion because we hadn't really been able to do anything too much. And he said to me, look, I might just go off and shoot some segments for Bindi's show, just little stuff on the reef and little animals and stuff. And I said, okay, fine, you know, anything that would keep him moving and keep his adrenaline going. And that's what happened. He was just going out to shoot little pieces on the reef and talk about fish and stingrays and all that. And the next thing I heard on the radio was that there was a medical emergency. The little dinghy that he was in, we're bringing him back with the crew. And
John Stainton there, Steve's close friend and manager. Steve Irwin liked to call himself a wildlife warrior. It was a role he was born to. The parents he idolised owned a Sunshine Coast reptile park, and Steve never considered doing anything else. But, as we know, he had a character that couldn't be contained, and his death is tonight being mourned around the world.
Those who knew best the dangers of working with wild animals, Steve Irwin's mates and colleagues, are reeling from his sudden death. John Weigel spent years working with Irwin and his father at the reptile park in Gosford and was meant to join Irwin on what would be his final documentary.
I'm still in shock, but the first thought I had was that 3 days ago I was supposed to be in North Queensland with Steve.
Steve Irwin was also the local poster boy for quarantine.
Now this little terror can chew through tons of grain stores quicker than you can say, crikey, what was that?
News of his death sending shockwaves through federal parliament, the Prime Minister breaking the news to the opposition leader.
He was a one-off character, and he wasn't just a character for Australians, he was a character for lots of people around the world.
Internationally renowned scientist David Suzuki says the world has lost a great champion of conservation.
I thought that he brought a much greater respect for animals that are normally demonized by people. People are afraid or disgusted by snakes or alligators or crocs. And
stingray experts have also been stunned by his death.
Extremely rare, obviously tragic consequences, but it's important to remember that these animals are actually defensive, and if they don't feel threatened, they generally don't do this.
James Boyce, 10 News.
Correspondent Rani Sadler interviewed Steve Irwin many times in America, where he was a media superstar. Now, Rani joins us now from our LA studio. Rani, what was the man behind the image really like?
Well, I'm sure as anyone who ever met him would say, he was exactly the same off camera as he was on camera. He was such an honest-to-goodness, lovely bloke, and I'm sure that there are many in Queensland who know that for a fact. Every time he came over here and we interviewed him, he was always very professional. He was always great to interview. He would always do sound bites over and over again if he stuffed them up or you missed out on something you should have gotten. He was always very helpful and lots of fun, of course. He was such a larrikin. Once he got to know you, he liked to have a bit of a game with you. He once put a 3-metre olive python around my neck in the middle of a piece to camera, gave me a big fright, gave him a big laugh, and that was him to a T. He just loved life. He loved everything he did. He tried to make everything he did fun. He tried to get the most out of it, and he always brought joy to everybody who met him. It's a really, really sad day.
And Rani, what's the reaction in America tonight?
The reaction is huge. It was the lead news story on almost every one of the local Los Angeles late-night news bulletins tonight. America has taken it hard. Americans loved Steve Irwin. It's hard to overstate how popular he was over here, or still is, even in his death. UCLA was having Crocodile Hunter Week before most of us in Australia had ever even heard of the man. Every child loves him. When he came over here and did some live concerts last year, they were all sold out. People just couldn't get enough of Steve Irwin, and tonight I think they're almost as devastated, if not just as much or more than we are, Marie-Louise.
Thanks, Rani. US correspondent Rani Sadler in LA.
Well, the rest of the day's news when we return.
And we continue our tribute to Steve Irwin.